Hi everyone! So for today, we will be reviewing the qualitative and quantitative chemistry, and this is under Module 6, so together with your pharmaceutical microbiology. And here is the outline of our review, no, para mas guided tayo kung ano yung mga itatackle natin. So first is a little bit of introduction. So it's qualitative and quantitative chemistry, no. So merong quali, meron ding quanti, we will define that. And we will also look at the different types of analysis and also yung mga different types of errors, no. And then we will go to the specific types of analysis. So firstly, no, we'll go to the classical method. So ano ba yung mga classical methods? So kasama dyan yung ating mga volumetric assay, which is also known, more commonly known as your titration. Then we also have your gravimetric analysis. Tapos nandyan yung ating mga special methods. And lastly, we will also be looking at the different instrumental methods of analysis. So as you can see in our outline, no, makikita nyo yung mga words na assay, analysis. And when we talk about analysis, madalas na nakakabit dyan ay math. Ayan, actually, no, maraming nabudol na mag-pharmacy kasi laging sinasabi ay wala namang math. Pero ayan, meron tayong math, no? And etong subject na to, it's actually a combination of math and chemistry. So medyo double whammy, no? Kaya maraming students ang natatakot sa subject na ito. Pero ayan, don't panic, no? Or don't worry. We'll try to isa-isahin at himayin yung mga formulas, no? Or yung mga calculations so that mas magagamay nyo yung mga calculations. Alright, so let's start with the introduction, no? Yung qualitative and quantitative chemistry. Let's start with the first one, yung tinatawag na qualitative chemistry. So, bago pala natin i-define, no, this qualitative and quantitative chemistry, it belongs under yung tinatawag natin na analytical chemistry. So, yun yung term, no, na nag-cover sa both qualitative and quantitative chemistry. So, starting with qualitative, ano bang ibig sabihin kapag sinasabi natin qualitative? So, kapag sinabing qualitative, it's more of we are looking at or we are testing the nature. Okay? Testing of the nature of the constituents of a given material. So, sa isang material kasi, there might be a lot of constituents. So, usually kapag qualitative, ang gusto lang natin ay aalamin ano ba yung laman ng isang sample or ano ba ang laman ng isang material. And it is also defined as the determination of the composition. Okay, composition. So, yun nga, ano ba ang laman ng sample na ito? And this is also known as the confirmation of what? Ayan, yung ating identity. Kaya, kasama sa ating kasama dun sa ating classification or definition ng qualitative chemistry is yung tinatawag natin na ID test. Okay, makikita natin to, no, sa USP, sa bawat material or mga API, for example, or excipients. Usually, unang mga test na ginagawa dyan is ID test or identification test. Kasi we have to verify etong material ba na to. For example, ang ating API ay paracetamol. Di ba lahat yan magkakamukha ng mga powders? So, etong powder ba na ito ay naglalaman ba siya talaga ng paracetamol? Kasi baka mamaya, iba ang kanyang laman and hindi natin yon magagamit, no, to make paracetamol dosage forms. Okay, so for qualitative chemistry, it actually answers the question, what? Okay, so yun yung question, no? Ano? What is present in a given sample? Okay, again, ang tinitingnan natin, nature, composition, identity, ano yung present doon sa ating sample. Alright, next is quantitative. So yung quantitative chemistry is, anong kaibahan niya doon sa ating qualitative chemistry? So this focuses on what? So kanina, no, nature. While your quantitative chemistry, it focuses more on the proportion. Okay? So yun nga, may iba't ibang posibleng laman yung ating material. Yung bawat laman na yon, once you identify, ganong kadami ba siya doon sa sample na yon. It is also the determination of the absolute or relative, okay? Kung hindi proportion, no, ang tinitingnan din ay yung amount. Okay? Gaanong kadami yung isang element, isang species, or compound that is present in a sample. And ang madalas na kinakalculate, no, when it comes to quantitative chemistry is the percentage. Okay? Percentage content. So, madalas yan, no? Ang hinahanap natin is, for example, percent purity. Or kapag product na ang pinag-uusapan natin, we also have percent label claim or percent label composition. So, that means, no, kapag product, di ba lagi yan sa label, meron siyang dose na nakalagay. Yun yung labeled dose niya. So, we are just ensuring na kung ano yung nakalagay sa label, for example, 500 milligrams, 500 milligrams ba talaga? Or within, dun sa range na allowable for the dose, yung nakalagay doon sa mismong sample natin. So kung kanina, no, qualitative chemistry, it answers the question what is present in the sample. Dito naman sa quantitative chemistry is, ang tanong natin, how much is present in our sample. Okay. So, meron din tayong term, no, lagi nating nare-relate. Ang analytical chemistry, pagdating sa pharmaceutical application, it is always seen or na-apply natin yan dun sa tinatawag natin na pharmaceutical assay. So ano ang definition ng ating pharmaceutical assay? So this is a procedure to determine both the presence and the amount of a substance. Although kapag sinabing assay, madalas ang target talaga natin, no, ay yung amount. Pero based on the chemical reactions or based dun sa mga settings na nilalagay natin sa instrument, we can also verify the identity or the presence of the analyte in such sample. Pharmaceutical assay is also the procedure or examination to determine what? Okay, ano yung usually end terms, no? Or end na mga parameters na na-measure natin sa ating pharmaceutical assay. It's the strength, dahil ang pinag-uusapan natin, no, ay yung ating pharmaceutical product. Yung strength ng product, we also have the potency or the purity of our drug. Okay, di ba yung strength and potency, yan usually yung terms na related doon sa ating dose. Kaya, ito yung marerelate natin sa nabanggit ko kanina na percent label claim. And then for the purity, usually it pertains to the raw material. So kapag purity, no, ayan, madalas, ito yung mga kinakalculate natin na percent purity. And also, kasama din dito yung tinatawag natin na mga limit test. Okay, when it comes to percent purity, tinitingnan natin. So, balikan natin si paracetamol. So, paracetamol, yun yung pinakalaman ng ating raw material. But there might be some impurities present. So, in any raw material, hindi naman yan 100%, yun lang talaga yung laman niya. Laging meron niyang mga impurities. And this can come from, for example, sa synthesis, no, nung material na yon, may natitirang mga catalyst, for example, or mga solvents, or kung sinorse yan from a natural source. So, usually, pinupurify yan, pero meron pa ding mga natitirang mga impurities. That is why mini-measure din natin yung mga impurities na yon because they can have detrimental effects on the performance of the product or of the raw material. Ayan. And syempre, ang tinitingnan natin is hindi lang yung effectivity or efficacy ng ating drug, but also the safety. So remember, no, some of the impurities, this can include heavy metals, for example. So we have to limit that to a certain amount to ensure the safety of our consumers. And yun yung tinatawag natin, no, na mga limit test. So nakalagay din yan sa USP, no, both the assay for the percent purity and also the percent label claim and also yung mga limit test. Okay, yung limit test, again, tinitingnan natin anong impurities ang meron and pasok ba siya doon sa requirement na hanggang sa ganitong amount lang pwede. So, mini-measure din yon to ensure, again, the efficacy, safety, and quality of our product. Alright, so when it comes to analytical chemistry, sa qualitative and quantitative chemistry, we always talk about two terms, okay? This is your accuracy and your precision. So in some applications, interchangeable tong dalawang to, no? But in analytical chemistry, these are two different terms. And very important ito sa analytical chemistry kasi sabi natin, yung application, no, when it comes to pharmaceutical products, this is a way of ensuring the efficacy and safety of our products. Hence, all of these methods, all of these analytical methods or assay, we need to ensure the accuracy and the precision. In short, kailangan tama. Kasi kung mali, mapapahamak natin yung mga pasyente. Kaya kailangan, no, okay yung ating method at yung results na nakukuha natin is both accurate and precise. Okay? So, i-define natin, ano ba tong accuracy at ano yung precision. Okay, first is accuracy. Accuracy, this is the degree of agreement of the test results with the true value. Okay? Kung ano yung tamang value. Okay? So, for example, yung isang material, okay, paracetamol ulit, para madali lang ang ating example. So, kung nakalagay na 99% na paracetamol, yung percent purity niya, so kapag inanalyze mo siya, yung result mo ba doon sa experiment mo ay tumutugma doon sa totoong 99% na purity ng ating sample or nung paracetamol na raw material. So this is, again, no, the degree of agreement of the test results with the true or the target value or the closeness of the results obtained by the procedure to the true value. So agreement, no, or closeness. Kasi hindi naman natin laging 100% accurate talaga lahat. So it's how close you are to the true value or to the correct value. Okay? So this is also the closeness. Okay? Again, the closeness of the results obtained by the procedure to the true value. So for emphasis, no, inuulit-ulit lang natin. And to be able to know how accurate you are, this is expressed in terms of error. Okay? So later on, no, we will be looking at the different types of error. Okay? And paano ba natin nalalaman? Ano ba yung possible source ng error? And kaya ba nating ma-eliminate yung errors na yan? Okay, tingnan naman natin ang precision and what is its difference to accuracy. Precision naman, it's the degree of agreement among individual results. Okay, usually kasi, di ba, kapag analytical method, you perform several trials. Madalas yan, at least 3 trials. So, ang tinitingnan mo sa precision, yung results mo doon sa 3 trials na yon ay nagtutugma ba? Or close sila sa isa't isa. Kasi kung magkakalayo, there might be something wrong with your procedure. Okay? So, degree of agreement among individual results and the closeness of results that have been obtained exactly the same way. So, yung trials, di ba? Ang trials is ipe-perform mo yung experiment ng paulit-ulit using the same procedure. Kasi kapag may iniba ka doon sa procedure, malamang mag-iiba din yung iyong results. Pero dito, sa precision, tinitingnan natin, yun nga, inuulit-ulit natin yung experiment exactly the same way. Kung wala kang iniba, supposedly, walang mag-iiba din dapat doon sa results mo. Or kung may mag-iba man, very, very small. So, yun yung tinitingnan natin, no? The closeness or agreement of these results of different trials to each other. So, for you to be able to imagine it better, no? Ano ba yung pagkakaiba ng accuracy and precision. Imagine, or nandito sa ating slide, no, ay yung ating dartboard. Okay? Di ba sa darts, ang gusto natin ay bullseye. Okay? Yung bullseye, yung nasa gitna. Yun yung ating target value. So, tingnan natin, no, si number 1 image dito. Makikita natin, ang galing. So, nandun lahat sa gitna, bullseye. So, dito, dahil close tayo doon sa target value, ibig sabihin, this is high accuracy. And dahil magkakalapit din, no, several trials lang. Yan, ilan yan? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, yung 6 na tira na yan, magkakalapit doon sa bullseye. Ibig sabihin, this is also high precision. Okay, another scenario, number 2. So, makikita natin, no, ay, medyo lumayo doon sa bullseye, ang layo doon sa ating target value na nasa gitna. So, ibig sabihin, ito ay low accuracy, pero makikita natin, magkakalapit. Okay? So, yung ating player ay consistent siya, pero consistently wrong. Okay? Ayan. So, ibig sabihin, ito ay low accuracy, but high precision. Okay, next is yung third scenario natin. Makikita natin medyo malapit naman doon sa ating bullseye. Hindi naman siya yung sobrang layo, no? So we can still say that this is high accuracy. So medyo mataas pa din yung points yan sa darts, di ba? But, kita natin, no? Magkakalayo yung bawat tira. Ibig sabihin, this is low precision. And then yung last scenario natin, ito ang needs practice pa talaga. Because, ayan, ang layo na doon sa ating target value, ibig sabihin low accuracy, magkakalayo pa yung tira. So this is also low precision. Okay? So, ayan, nakita nyo, no, yung difference ng ating accuracy and precision. Again, your accuracy is the closeness of your result to the target or to the true value, while your precision is the closeness of the different results of the different trials to each other. Alright, now, kung hindi accurate and precise, no, yung ating results, so yan ay, ibig sabihin, meron tayong error. And as mentioned earlier, no, yung accuracy, kapag hindi natin nakukuha yung true value or the target value, then, ibig sabihin nun, meron tayong error. So, in terms of error, meron tayong tinatawag na absolute error, meron ding tinatawag na relative error. Okay? So, we have the absolute error, which is the difference between the mean. So, usually, no, ina-express naman natin ang results natin dahil different trials, ina-express natin in terms of average or mean. So, etong absolute error, this is the difference between the mean and the true value. Yun nga, ganong kalayo yung results mo, no, doon sa ating true value or target value. So, kung gagawa natin siya, no, ng formula, ayan, so, etong variables na to, no, we have the absolute error. Again, it's the absolute value, or yung iba, no, hindi naman nila ina-absolute value. So, merong sign kapag hindi naka-absolute value. Pag negative, so mas mababa yung average mo doon sa true value. And then, kapag mas mataas naman, ay mas mataas. Or kapag positive yung sign, mas mataas yung iyong average kaysa sa true value. Okay, so again, no, it's the difference between the mean and your true value. Although, yung ating mga results, no, madalas, hindi natin ina-express in absolute error. Kasi hindi natin masyadong makita yung magnitude, gaano bang kalaki yung error. That is why, ang usually tinitingnan natin ay relative error. So let me give you an example muna, no, para ma-compare natin at maintindihan nyo ano yung sinasabi kong hindi natin makita yung magnitude ng error. So usually kapag mga analysis, lalong-lalo na instrumental analysis, small concentrations or small amounts na lang yung ginagamit natin dyan. So mga milligram, yung iba, as in, it can go as low as microgram, nanogram, or even picograms. Okay? So for example lang, no, ang true value natin, kunyari ang mini-measure natin, ang true value niya talaga ay 1 milligram. Okay, and then yung mean na nakuha natin na ay 0.5 milligram. So ibig sabihin ng absolute error natin is 0.5 milligram. O di ba? Yung ating amount or yung number, parang ang liit-liit lang niya, 0.5 milligram. Pero tingnan natin, no, kapag kinompute natin yan using relative error. But before that, ayan, i-define muna natin ano yung relative error and ano yung difference niya sa ating absolute error. So relative error, this is found by dividing the absolute error by the true value. Okay? So yung kanina, no, to get the absolute error, you just need to subtract yung value ng ating mean doon sa ating true value. Now, when you get that, absolute error, divide by the true value. That's your relative error. So, ibig sabihin, no, kung gagawa natin ng formula yan, your relative error is, again, your absolute error divided by the true value, and usually expressed in percentage yan, so laging minumultiply by 100. And, again, no, yan, the absolute or mean error is expressed usually as a percentage of the true value. So, kung babalikan natin yung example natin kanina, no, yung error or yung mean natin is 0.5 milligrams and the true value, for example, is 1 milligram. So, na-compute natin, the absolute error is 0.5 milligram. Now, let's try to see ano yung kanyang relative error. So, 0.5 milligrams over 1 milligram. So, yun yung true value natin kanina, no? times 100. So this is actually 50%. Okay, nakikita nyo, ang laki pala ng error. It's not just 0.5 milligram, parang ang liit-liit na amount yon. But when we converted it to relative error or in percent, ang laki pala ng pagkakamali, no? Ang laki ng difference from the true value. So 50% yung ating error. So again, no, yung relative error, mas nakikita natin yung magnitude ng ating error. Okay, so now let's go to the different types of error. So we have several types, no? And we need to understand these types of errors kasi doon natin mas mai-improve yung ating method, no? Para maiwasan na magkakamali yung ating mga results. So etong mga errors natin, no? Sino ba naman ang may gusto sa mga error? So we have different types. Meron tayong error or pagkakamali na ayaw na nating balikan. O meron na tayong mga error din na ako na lang ulit. Okay? Ayan, yung mga hindi pa maka-move on, no? Pero yan, let's move on to the different types of error. So actually, tatlo yan, no? Yung ating types of errors, we have the indeterminate errors. We also have the determinate errors. And we also have the gross error. So let's define this, no? And tingnan natin ano ba yung difference ng mga errors na ito. Okay, number one, yung ating indeterminate errors. From the name, indeterminate, no? Medyo ma-define na natin, indeterminate. I cannot determine where these errors come from. So this is also known as your random error or accidental error. So tandaan nyo, random, accidental. So parang bigla-bigla na lang siyang sumusulpot. Okay, kaya yung characteristic ng ating indeterminate errors ay ito. Okay, define natin, no? Usually indeterminate errors, they are just slight. Okay? Yung magnitude niya or minsan lang siya nangyayari, no? Hindi ganun kalaki yung nagiging effect niya. These are slight variations in a series of observations made by the observer under identical conditions. Okay? And itong indeterminate errors, no? This usually result from causes that are difficult to detect. Yun nga, sabi natin, other names kanina, random, accidental. So, hindi siya madalas mangyari, bigla-bigla na lang siyang nangyayari at na-affect niya yung result mo. Kaya, mahirap siyang i-detect. Kasi kapag consistently nangyayari, doon mo mas makikita kung ano yung source of error. But in this case, no, it's random, it's accidental, and again, hence the name, indeterminate. Hindi ko ma-detect yung result nito and hindi ko din makita kung ano yung cause nito. Hence, ito usually yung mga sources of error that is impossible to eliminate. Okay, kung hindi mo alam yung cause, hindi mo rin alam kung paano mo siya gagawa ng paraan. Okay? So, nabanggit doon sa ating definition, no, slight variations in a series of observations made by the observer under identical conditions. So, ibig sabihin, no, you have different trials, tapos bigla mo makikita yung isang trial, ay bakit kakaiba ang result nito? Tapos nagkaroon ka na naman ng isa pang trial, ay iba na naman yung result. Hence, ano ang ma-affect nito? Is it accuracy or precision? Okay, kung babalikan natin, no, ang ating definition, so 'di ba, ang accuracy is closeness of your results to the target or to the true value, while precision is the closeness of your individual results. So kung trials, yung pinag-uusapan natin, no, nagkakaroon ng pagkakaiba. So kung ang sagot mo ay precision, then you are correct. Okay, this affects yung ating indeterminate errors. This affects the precision of our results. Okay? Again, no, indeterminate errors, it's random, it's accidental. Slight yung variations, it's difficult to detect and impossible to eliminate. Okay. So, anong examples natin ng mga indeterminate errors? So, pwedeng sa analyst, no, kapag, for example, meron kang iba't ibang analyst. Siyempre, iba-iba yung skill niyan. Kapag ang mini-measure mo ay subjective, pwedeng iba-iba din yung judgment nila. For example, you are measuring taste. So, syempre, iba-iba yung panlasa natin. So, you can have slight variations in your results. Or, for example, yung pagbabasa sa isang glassware, sa isang burette. Okay? So, kapag iba-iba ang skill at vision ng iyong analyst, possible na magkaroon ng slight variations yung mga readings mo and hence the results. Next, pwedeng sa instrument din mismo. So, yung ating mga instrument, yes, they are sophisticated but they are not perfect. Okay? Kahit na ganong kamahal yung instrument mo, there are still cases na possible na magkaroon ka ng mga fluctuations na tinatawag. Okay? So, yung fluctuations nito, or yun nga, nagkakaroon minsan, no, ng random noise in the signal, thus affecting your results. And remember, no, random ito. Kasi kung consistent na nangyayari, itong noise na ito, or yung magnitude niya is similar, then there's already something wrong with your equipment. So, hindi na siya indeterminate error. So, makikita natin mamaya, no, that's already a case of determinate error. Pero kapag random lang, no, kapag bigla-bigla lang sumusulpot yung mga fluctuations na yon, that's an indeterminate error. Alright, so puntahan natin yung kabaliktaran, your determinate errors, also known as your systemic error. So, meron ng mali, no, doon sa sistema. Pero, ang maganda dito, determinate. Pwede mong makita saan nanggagaling yung ating error. Okay, determinate errors, they recur in a constant. Okay, so ito yung isang malaking difference, no? Kapag indeterminate, usually random. Okay? Hindi siya palaging nangyari or hindi siya consistent. While for determinate errors, they are usually constant or consistent. Okay? It recurs in a constant or consistent manner in each of a series of determination. And this is usually, so another difference, no? Kapag sinabing determinate, determinate, detectable. Okay? So this is your detectable errors. Kaya mong makita, no, na ay, parang mali itong result na ito. Hence, if you can detect it, then it can be eliminated to a large extent. Okay, your determinate errors, kahit na alam natin na ma-eliminate natin ito, ayaw pa din natin ito, no? Kaya nga kailangan ma-eliminate. Kasi it can affect, kung yung kanina, no, indeterminate errors can affect the precision. Your determinate errors can affect the accuracy of your analysis. Okay, so balikan natin yung definition, no? Constant. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, constantly kang nagkakamali. Sa lahat ng trials mo, nandun yung error na yon. So, ibig sabihin, magiging pare-pareho yung result mo. Ang problema lang, pare-parehong mali. Okay? Kaya precise pa din yung results mo, pero dahil dun sa error, okay, ay lumalayo tayo doon sa target value. Kaya, yung ating determinate error, no, it affects the accuracy of your analysis. Okay, ano ang examples natin, no, ng ating mga determinate errors? Okay, first one ay yung mga personal errors. So, nandito na naman ang problem natin with the analyst. Okay? So, iba naman to, yung determinate error na yung personal or yung analyst problem sa indeterminate error kanina kasi that's already a yung mga may mga factors na pwedeng hindi mo na talaga matanggal. For example, yung taste perception. So hindi naman tayo pare-pareho talaga ng taste. But in this case, no, for example, nakalagay dito, this is the inability to judge color change sharply. Okay? So this is in the case of titration kasi 'di ba ang basis ng ating endpoint is color change. So very important that we can see the transition, okay, or the sharp color change kasi otherwise, very narrow lang yan. Konting sobra lang yan, you will already be over-titrated. So, ang nangyayari, no, kapag hindi mo alam na yun na pala dapat yung color ng endpoint, so sa lahat ng trials mo, yun yung judgment mo, ay, ito yung aking endpoint. So, precise siya, pare-pareho yung judgment mo, but then, mali pala siya kasi over-titrated na yung color na tinitingnan mo. So, this can be eliminated, no? Sabi natin, determinate errors can be eliminated by training, ayan, so practice ng practice at makita mo ng makita yung proper color. Or yung iba, no, kapag hirap talaga doon sa pag-judge ng colors, medyo ito kasi yung problem, no, with titrations, judgment talaga ng color. It highly depends on the analyst doon sa judgment niya. So minsan, para mas maging uniform at alam talaga kung ano yung color na target mo, pwedeng gumamit ng mga color chart. Okay? So parang mga small cards yan, na nandun yung different colors, different shades, na pwede mong pag-comparean para less yung magiging variability and yung error na pwedeng ma-infer ng analyst. Okay? So that's one example, no? Pero hindi naman natin laging isisisi sa analyst yung ating determinate errors. This can also be, kasi sabi nga, no, systematic error. Maraming possible sources doon sa ating analytical system. This can also be sourced from the method or the procedure. Ayan. So error of method, pwedeng yung protocol mo mismo ay faulty siya or hindi tama yung pagkakagawa. No? It's either yung protocol yung mali or merong protocol pero hindi nasusunod ng maayos. Incorrect sampling. So, ito ay mga technique at skill issues that can be solved by training and supervision kapag mga first time pa lang, no? And of course, kapag mga contamination issues. Kung kunyari, no, mga microbiological or mga sterile environment ang kailangan sa analysis. So, syempre, magkakaroon ka ng error if hindi mo na-maintain yung sterility ng iyong environment. Nagkakaroon ng contamination. So, aside from the method or the procedure, your determinate errors can also come from the apparatus, yung pang-measure na device, no, or even the instrument. So, sa aspect na ito, ang madalas na source ng error is kapag pangit talaga yung iyong instrument, hindi na tama yung kanyang measurement and hindi siya na-detect because there is no calibration. So, very important ang calibration, no? Kasi doon natin na-i-ensure na tama yung na-measure ng ating apparatus or ng instrument. Okay? So, kapag mali ang calibration or mali ang measurement, no? So, consistent yan. Kung yun at yun ang ginagamit mo sa measurement, so consistent na mali yung magiging results. Okay? So, na-affect ngayon yung accuracy dahil mali siya, pero hindi yung precision kasi yun at yun din yung instrument or apparatus na gagamitin mo. Okay, and then lastly, no, we have the gross errors. Okay, so again, no, we have the indeterminate, we have the determinate, and we have the gross errors. So your gross errors, it usually occur only occasionally. Okay, and this is often large. Okay, tandaan, no, gross. Di ba kapag gross, ibig sabihin nun, malaki. Yung effect nito, madalas, malaki yung impact niya. And this may cause the result to be either high or low. Okay? So, ano ang example natin, no, ng ating gross errors? Okay. So, gross errors, this is often the product of human errors. Okay, so differentiate lang natin kasi kanina nababanggit natin, pwedeng may analyst error sa indeterminate, pwedeng may analyst error din doon sa ating determinate error. So ano naman yung sinasabi dito na human error that can cause gross errors? Okay, so ito, for example, mali ang computation. Okay, so may iwe-weigh ka, ipo-compute mo. Kung mali ang iyong computation, mali ang mawe-weigh mo, kaya tuloy-tuloy na yan ang laki ng error mo doon sa analysis. So kung computation naman ng volume, for example, nagdadilute ka ng mga solutions, kung mali ang volume ng aliquot na nakuha mo, then ibig sabihin, yung succeeding solutions mo, palaki ng palaki yung error niyan habang dinadilute mo yung nanggaling doon sa maling solution. Ayan. So one example no, ng human error ay yung ating errors in computation. Pwede din yung error in recording. Okay? So, ang maganda ngayon sa mga instrumental methods of analysis, yung results mo, yung data mo, automatically, pwede mo ma-convert to merong table sa Excel. So, nandun na, galing na doon. Pero before, ay, syempre, record ka sa papel, isusulat mo siya talaga. Hence, possible na magkamali, no? For example, nire-record mo lang yung weight ng raw material mo. So, kung magkamali ka lang ng isang decimal place or magkamali ka ng unit of measurement, that can already be a large source of error. Okay? So, yan yung human or analyst error, no? Na magkakos ng ating gross errors. Okay, so yan ang ating, again, no, different types of errors. We have, again, the determinate, indeterminate, and then determinate error. And then lastly, we have our gross errors. Ayan, sa gross errors pala, no, ihabol ko lang, paano nyo malalaman kung ang source ng error nyo ay gross error siya? Usually, makikita nyo yan kapag meron kayong outliers doon sa data. Okay? So, yung kanina kasi, no, kapag indeterminate, di ba, ang na-affect niya ay precision. So, yung precision na yon ay, yes, medyo magkakalayo yung ating results, pero usually, nakapalibot pa rin siya doon sa true value. Lumalayo lang siya ng konti. Ang nagkakalayo-layo ay yung ating different trials. Kapag may sobrang layo na talaga, no, yun nga, tinatawag nating outliers, that's already a gross error. Alright, and then last sa ating introduction, no, ay yung ating classification of analysis. So we have already defined qualitative and quantitative chemistry. We have already reviewed the types of errors. So let's look at the different classifications of analysis. So tingnan muna natin as a list, and then most of this, no, we will discuss one by one sa succeeding parts ng ating discussion. Okay, so sa ating classification, no, we can classify the different analytical methods in different bases. So yung una, this is based on sample size. Depende kung ganong kalaki or kaliit yung kailangan mo, no, or kakailanganin ng instrument if you are using an instrumental method. So, ang classification natin, we have the ultra microanalysis, microanalysis, semi-microanalysis, and lastly, we have macro analysis. So, malalaman naman natin from the terms, no, kung alin dyan ang pinakamaliit at pinakamalaki. When we say macro, di ba, ito usually yung large. Tapos, paakyat tayo, paliit ng paliit yung amount ng sample na kakailanganin natin. Okay, macro analysis, gaano karami? Usually, this requires 100 milligrams or more. Okay, semi-micro analysis naman, usually mga 10 milligrams to 100 milligrams. Next ay micro analysis. So, semi-micro analysis, no, papunta pa lang tayo doon sa micro, yung maliit. Micro analysis naman is 1 milligram to 10 milligram. And then lastly, kapag sobrang liit na, no, so nabanggit ko nga kanina yung mga concentrations, it can go as low as micro, nano, and picograms. So yan yung mga ultra micro analysis na. This is already less than 1 milligram. Okay, so sa macro analysis, madalas dito ay yung ating mga classical methods of analysis. For example, titration, okay, mga limit test, mga identification test. Usually, you might need a larger amount of sample. Pwedeng mas mababa, no? Pwedeng umabot pa ng semi-micro analysis. Pero yung maliliit talaga, so yung mga ultra, micro, semi-micro, usually ay, ito na yung mga instrumental methods of analysis. So, depende doon sa tinatawag na sensitivity. Okay? Ang mga instruments kasi natin or apparatus, they can be measured or makita yung performance nila sa pag-detect ng isang sample depending on their concentration based yan dun sa parameter ng sensitivity. So kung very sensitive ang iyong instrument, then eto na yung mga ultra micro analysis. So sobrang liliit na lang ng sample na kailangan mo pero kaya pa rin i-measure, kaya pa rin siyang i-detect ng ating instrument. Alright, next, based on percent extractive. So this is usually applied, no, kapag mga plant material or mga extract, kaya sa tinatawag na percent extractives. So we have two types. It depends kung ano yung gusto mong i-analyze. Kasi pagdating sa mga plants, di ba, meron tayong secondary metabolites. And there are different classifications. So merong test na gusto mo lang makita, i-identify ganong karami yung ganitong class. But there are also some analysis na gusto mo makita anong specific compound and ganong karami yung compound na yon in the material. So, kapag general pa lang, no, general class, then that is your proximate analysis. Kapag sinabing proximate analysis, you are just looking at the class or group of compounds. For example, gusto mo lang i-determine yung alkaloids, pero specific alkaloids, hindi mo pa siya concerned. Now, kung may gusto kang i-target na isang specific alkaloid, that is already what you call an ultimate analysis. Okay, proximate, di ba parang more on estimate lang siya. But kapag ultimate, very specific. So kapag ultimate, no, you are now looking at just a single compound. So for example, ayan sa belladonna, di ba, meron tayong alkaloid na atropine. So kung atropine lang yung concern mo, it's a specific compound, specific alkaloid in the material, that is already what you call the ultimate analysis. So again, dalawa, no, kapag percent extractives, you have your proximate analysis and your ultimate analysis. Okay, next ay based on the nature of method. Okay? So sa based sa nature ng method, we have yung chemical, we have the instrumental, we also have the biological. So meron na din tayong mga biological assays, no? And also yung ating mga special methods. Okay, first is chemical. Okay, ito yung unang classification based on the nature of the method. So we have 3 examples here. So we have the volumetric. Okay, volumetric, and then we also have gravimetric. And lastly, ay yung ating gasometric. So sa discussion natin later, no, ay ang titingnan na lang natin volumetric and gravimetric. Yung gasometric, hindi na kasi sobrang panahon pa ni Kompong Bobong yan. Okay, so hindi naman na din tinatanong sa boards yan. Dapat lang, no, kasi nga sobrang luma na nung analysis na yan. Yung volumetric and gravimetric kasi, although classical nga or medyo luma na siya, meron pa rin tayong application yan. So ginagamit pa rin yan hanggang ngayon, pero mas konti na compared before. Okay, volumetric. Anong ibig sabihin, no? Or ano yung description ng volumetric analysis? Kapag sinabing volumetric analysis, you use a solution of known concentration. Okay, meron kang solution na alam mo yung concentration. And yun yung magiging basis mo to be able to compute for the purity or the percentage or amount of the analyte in the sample. Okay, so later, no, makikita pa natin anong ibig sabihin nito and paano ginagawa ang volumetric analysis. Now, for gravimetric naman, gravimetric, this is the separation. And when you separate the compound, you weigh. Okay, you weigh the compound of known composition. So, ang basis nito, no, is that yung weight ay equivalent siya or mame-measure natin yung analyte natin. So, for example, precipitate out natin. Meron tayong chemical reaction and we precipitated out a certain compound. So, yung compound na yun, we can use that as an equivalent para makalculate ano ba yung percentage composition niya doon sa pinanggalingan niyang material. And then lastly, for chemical or classical method, we have gasometric. So, yung gasometric, no, from the name, gas. So, ang tinitingnan natin dito ay volume of gas liberated or yung decrease in volume kasi may naliliberate tayong gas. Okay? Ito yung ating chemical or classical methods, no? Volumetric, gravimetric, and gasometric. Okay, so next classification natin, still under the basis of the nature of method. So yung kanina, no, it's your chemical or classical method. We also have the instrumental methods of analysis. So karamihan actually, no, ng mga analysis ngayon is instrumental methods of analysis na. Kasi ito usually, yun nga nabanggit ko kanina, usually high sensitivity. So you only need small amounts of sample. And usually, kapag ino-automate natin yung isang process, no, and nagiging less reliant na tayo doon sa mga judgment or observations ng analyst, then nalilesen din natin yung possible errors in analysis. Okay? So, ito yung ating mga instrumental methods. Now, these are just examples, no? So, mas ipo-focus natin later on yung mga mas ginagamit na instrumental methods of analysis. So, sa example natin, under instrumental, so merong mga based on electrochemical na aspect. Okay? So, tinitingnan, no, madalas ito mga ions, yung mga analyte, and tinitingnan natin ay based doon sa kanilang chemical property and also yung electrical characteristics. So we have here, ayan, yung isang common example na madalas din natin gamitin ay yung potentiometry. One common example ay syempre measurement of pH. So di ba ang mini-measure natin doon ay yung amount of H+ in a solution. Another example ay yung ating polarography. Okay, next, optical naman, based on optical properties of a substance. So we have refractometry. We also have polarimetry, and then yung isang very common type of instrumental analysis, no, we have the spectrophotometry. All right, next, so based on the nature of method, we have the biological methods of analysis. Okay, biological meaning you have a biological system doon sa iyong analysis. Pero yung way of measuring this can be pwedeng may mga instrument ka pa din na ginagamit dito. Pero it depends kung ano yung biological system na gagamitin mo. Okay, so we have here an example, no, we can use an entire biological system. Ibig sabihin, an organism. And usually ay animal yung ginagamit natin. Kasi animals, well, we are in the same kingdom as animals, no? So, somehow, may mga similarities tayo with some animal models, kaya yun yung ginagamit natin na mga models to test yung ating drug. Okay, so we have animal no, or biological system wherein ang ginagamit natin, it can either be the whole animal or pwedeng specific tissues or organs. So, usually, no, kapag whole animal, i-administer mo doon sa animal yung drug and you will observe. So, meron kang mga parameters na i-observe. So, for example, no, isang very common animal na ginagamit ay yung rabbit. So, maraming pwedeng i-test sa rabbits, no? Siyempre, in the USP, we can see this in the pyrogen test. So, tinitingnan natin usually sa mga sterile substances, di ba? Remember, ang meaning or ang requirement natin for sterile substances is that they should be free from viable microorganisms and they should also be pyrogen-free. So, to be able to measure that or determine kung pyrogen-free ba talaga ang iyong product, so meron tayong pyrogen testing and ang ginagamit natin dyan ay rabbit. So, ang ino-observe mo dito, no, dun sa whole animal upon administration of the product, is, kapag sinabing pyrogen, it's fever causing. So, titingnan mo, magkakaroon ba ng fever or wala. Pero syempre, kailangan defined, no? Hindi naman siya basta hihipuin mo lang yung rabbit, ay, mainit-init siya. Hindi siya gano'n, no? Meron tayong requirement na specific degree Celsius na itataas doon sa original or baseline na temperature. Okay, so rabbit, again, sa pyrogen testing, this is also what you use doon sa pag-test ng insulin. We can also use rabbits for irritation testing, okay? And magagamit din siya no, for the tubocurarine. Okay, remember your tubocurarine is a muscle relaxant. So, yung usually ginagawa na dun sa rabbit ay yung head drop test. So, dahil muscle relaxant siya, marerelax yung muscle, hindi niya na kayang iangat yung ulo niya. So, what will happen? The rabbit will drop its head. Okay? So, yun yung observation. I-observe na mangyayari doon sa ating animal model. So, marami pa tayong other types of animal models. Depende kung ano yung appropriate doon sa isang disease na inaaral mo. So, marami yan. We have yung as small as mice, rats. We also have guinea pigs. We can also use dogs. Meron ding chicken, no? And also, yung tinatawag na NPH. NHP, not NPH. NHP, that's your non-human primate. In short, yung ating mga monkeys. Okay? And then, pwede din, no, ang i-observe mo kasi ay changes in the organs. Okay? Possible na magkaroon ng mga changes doon sa mismong organs. Hence, pwedeng after administration, so after a period of time, no, is kukunin yung organ para i-observe either microscopically, so pwedeng tingnan no, yung itsura ng mga tissues, or i-assay. So, titingnan mo gano'ng kadami nag-accumulate, for example, na drug doon sa isang specific organ. So, kapag whole animal, no, ito yung tinatawag na in vivo. And then kapag organs naman at tinatanggal mo siya doon sa loob ng biological system, this is your ex vivo analysis. Alright, next we also have microbial analysis. So, ito na yung gumagamit lang tayo ng mga cells, no? Kasi syempre microbes. Ito ay parang mga cells lang naman. So, microbial, nandyan yung ating mga bacterial systems, yeast, and molds. So, we can use this to test, yan, biological testing, no, ng ating mga antibiotics. Okay, mga antifungal, mga antibacterials. So, ang ginagamit natin ay syempre mga microbial systems na pinapagrow natin no, in a specific media and then titingnan lang natin kung mai-stop yung growth. And then, talking about cells, no, so meron din tayong mga cell lines talaga na ito ay specific naman sa mga organs or tissues na ita-target ng isang specific drug. So, ano mga examples natin ng mga cell lines? So, syempre, karamihan ay mga cancer cells. Ayan, ang isa kasing characteristic ng ating cancer cells is that they are immortal. So, madali silang i-handle, hindi basta-basta mamamatay yung cell line kahit na ilang beses mo siyang i-transfer or patubuin. So, aside from that, we have normal na mga animal or even human cells. So, hindi tayo gumagamit ng humans, no, na whole organism because that's unethical. And syempre kahit animal naman, may mga ethical issues. Kaya kailangan ng matinding ethical clearance no, before you proceed with testing of drugs in animals. Ganun din sa humans. So kung humans na yung ginagamit natin, then ang tawag na doon ay yung ating clinical trial. So hindi siya yung basta initial testing pa lang. Hindi pwede ang humans natin no, for this initial testing. Kailangan na test muna sa animal kasi kailangan natin makita no, yung safety before we apply to our humans in clinical trials. So, kung another parang pwede natin gawin bago i-subject sa mga humans and even sa animals, i-test muna doon sa ating mga animal or human cells. Okay, ito yung mga cell lines pa din. And dito sa mga small biological systems na to, na may mga cells or microbes ka lang, ito yung tinatawag natin ng mga in vitro experiment. Okay, so di ba meron tayong in vivo, meron tayong ex vivo, and yung ating in vitro. So again, these are biological systems for assays, no, and not clinical trials. Okay, and then last, doon sa ating classification based on the nature of method ay yung ating special methods of analysis. Okay, special methods of analysis. So, ito madalas yung makikita nating mga tests for plant material. So, ito yung pang-analysis no, ng ating mga crude drugs and herbal drug products. Okay, ano mga examples? So, hindi limited dito, no? Marami tayong mga tests. Ito yung mga common. So, we have the analysis of water content. We also have the crude fiber content. So, yung fiber, no, madalas kasi, di ba, ang ginagamit natin sa mga herbal products ay mga dahon. And we know that yung dahon, it contains mainly sa cell wall ay yung cellulose. Okay? Yung cellulose na yon, usually hindi natin siya nadadigest, no? Animals lang yung nakakapag-digest niyan. So, etong crude fiber na to, yun yung mini-measure, yung cellulose content of our plant materials. So, some of our plants, it is also rich in lipids, fatty acids, ayan, may mga balsams. So, meron ding specific na tests for that. And then, syempre, yung mga mababango nating plant material, no? Meron silang mga volatile oils. So, meron tayong specific na mga tests for volatile oils. Alright, so that's the introduction part, no, of our qualitative and quantitative chemistry. So, before we go to the specific types, i-discuss natin further, no, yung mga specific types ng mga analytical methods. Let's have some practice questions first. Okay, question number 1. So, what type of chemical analysis measures the percentage content? Okay, sa question, no? Ang mini-measure ay yung percentage content of the component present in a given sample. So, the choices are, yan, quantitative ba ito? Is this the proximate analysis? Ito ba yung gravimetric method? Or isa itong qualitative analysis? So, kung percentage ang ating pinag-uusapan, if your answer is letter A, ayan, yun ang correct answer natin. This is the quantitative method of analysis. So, basta amount or percentage yung dinedescribe doon sa question, that's quantitative. Ano nga ulit sa qualitative? So, quality. Quali, it's more on the identity. Okay? Or what is present in the sample. Now, yung letter B and C, no, so medyo ibang type to based on, so yung proximate, di ba, based on percent extractives, yung proximate ay we are determining a certain class of compounds. And then yung gravimetric naman, ito ay classification or example under chemical analysis na iyon ay isang classification under the nature of method. Alright, so next is question number 2. So question number 2, we have an example of assay here. So this is the assay of atropine in belladonna. So, ito ay example ng anong type ng assay. So, under to, no, ng ating percent extractives, yung na basis ng classification. So, is it A, the proximate assay? Letter B, ultimate assay? Or both A and B? And letter D, neither A and B. Okay, so we can already eliminate choices C and D kasi magkaiba ang dalawang ito. So, hindi siya both A and B. And well, dalawa lang naman yung classification natin under percent extractive. So, hindi naman siya neither kasi nandyan ang ating tamang sagot. So, ang pagpipilian na lang natin, no, is it A or is it B? So, again, ang example natin, ang tinitingnan natin ay single specific compound in a plant material. So, di ba, kapag single compound na ang pinag-uusapan, this is your, okay, letter B. Okay? So, yung ating answer, no, ay yung ultimate assay. Again, proximate, class of compounds. And ultimate, single specific compound. Next, question number 3. This is a type of analysis that identifies the amount of a single chemical species in a given sample. Okay, so nadidikdik na ang meaning na ito, no? I hope you will get the correct answer. So is it letter A, classical method, B, ultimate assay, C, instrumental assay, and D, proximate assay. Okay, so ang answer, again, no, inulit na lang natin, although kanina example, ngayon ay definition naman. So again, kapag single chemical species ang pinag-uusapan natin, this is your letter B. Okay, ultimate assay. So, hindi classical, no? And hindi din instrumental. Again, this is a classification based on the nature of method. And this classical method of analysis or instrumental method is, well, madalas, single species yung mini-measure dito. Pero meron ding possibility na group of compounds yung ma-measure nila. And then, letter D, again, ito ay estimate lang, or yung class of compounds ang tinitingnan natin. Okay, next, question number 4. So, it refers to the nearness of a value to a target value. So, ang keyword natin dito, nearness sa target value. Okay? So, is it accuracy? Is it defect? Is this precision? Or is this error? Okay, so again, no, kapag ang sinabi natin ay nearness or closeness of the value to the target or to the true value, that is your letter. So, hopefully, you were able to answer letter A. Okay? So, kapag target value, yan yung keyword nyo, no? We are talking about accuracy. Ano nga ulit ang precision? Ang precision naman, nearness or closeness of individual results. Okay? So, pwedeng near or close yung values ng bawat individual results pero hindi sila close to the true value. Kapag accuracy pinag-uusapan natin, again, closeness or nearness to the true or target value. So, hindi siya precision, no? Hindi rin siya error. Well, related siya sa accuracy, pero yan yung measure kung ganong kalayo yung ating value doon sa ating target value. And this is also not defect. So, yung defect kasi ay parang siya yung error term pagdating na sa quality control tests for pharmaceutical products. Alright, next ay question number 5. The following are optical devices or instruments except. So madalas no, kapag sinabing optic, 'di ba, vision, it usually pertains to the principle of light. So alin dito yung nag-work based sa principle ng light. Pero, ayan, tingnan muna natin yung question, no? Meron nakalagay na except. So, kailangan identify natin alin yung nag-work based sa principle ng light and hindi yon yung answer. So, naka-except, no? So, is it pH meter? Is it spectrophotometer? Is it a colorimeter? Or a flame photometer? Okay, so spectrophotometer, yan yung alam natin, no, na optical ang basis. Okay, so hindi na kasama ito. Next ay colorimeter. So that is actually a type of spectrophotometric analysis. Nasa colored or visible region lang yung ginagamit. So light pa din ang principle niya. Ganon din ang ating letter D, flame photometer. So yung tinitingnan naman natin dito, no, ay excitation of electrons sa isang flame. Ayan, kapag na-expose sa high temperatures. Pero nandun pa din ang principle ng ating light. Okay? So later on, mas madidiscuss pa natin ito. So ano lang ang natira? Yung ating pH meter. So hindi, 'di ba, hindi naman nagwo-work ang pH meter sa principle ng light. This is an electrochemical method. Okay? So the answer for this, no, question number 5 ay letter A. Okay, next ay question number 6. So the crude fiber of a drug is usually composed of cellulose, phytosterol, fixed oils, or cholesterol. Okay, di ba? Kapag fiber yung pinag-uusapan natin, usually what comes to mind ay yung mga damo-damo. Di ba kapag salad, mga high fiber, para tayo mga kambeng na kumakain ng damo. Kasi yun nga, madalas ito makikita sa mga dahon or even yung sa mga grains, no? Yun yung mga high fiber. Kasi yung sa plants, yung cell wall, it's composed mainly of letter A. Okay? So yung crude fiber natin, it's again, usually composed of cellulose. Okay? Not phytosterol, not fixed oils, not cholesterol. So ito ay mga fats, no? And hindi naman yan yung nagsusurround doon sa cells ng ating mga plant compounds or mga plant samples, ayan, plant materials. Okay, so we're done with the first part. Ayan yung introduction natin, no, sa quantitative and qualitative chemistry. Now, let's go to the specific types of analysis, starting with the classical methods. So, yung isa sa pinaka-common na classical method, no, ay yung ating volumetric assay. So, your volumetric assay is also known as your volumetric analysis, titrimetric analysis, or in short, ito yung kilala natin na titration. Okay, so titration, no? I think hopefully lahat ay familiar at lahat ay nakapag-perform nito, no? Para mas ma-visualize natin later on kung paano ba yung process and ano ba yung mga materials that we usually use in titrimetric analysis or titration. So, titration, no, i-define muna natin titration or volumetric assay. Kaya siya tinawag na volumetric kasi we are using specific volumes of a solution with known concentration. Okay? So again, volume of a solution of, kailangan known yung concentration kasi ito yung magiging basis mo for calculation. If you do not know the concentration, wala kang makakalculate. So volume of a solution of known concentration, this is more commonly known as a volumetric solution. Or 'di ba, yung mga ginagamit nating pang-titrate, lagi nating nilalagyan sa dulo ng pangalan na VS. Okay? Yung VS kasi or volumetric solution, ito yung alam natin yung concentration and very strict yung pagkaka-prepare such that alam talaga natin, sure tayo na tama yung kanyang concentration. So volumetric solution, no? Again, ito yung volume of, the solution na yung gagamitin nating volume, alam natin yung concentration. And this is consumed during an analysis and this is taken as a measure of the amount of the active constituent. Okay, ang tinitingnan kasi natin dito kapag volumetric analysis ay yung tinatawag na equivalent. Okay, yung equivalent ng analyte, di ba, mini-measure natin amount ng analyte. Ibe-base natin siya sa amount ng equivalent na mame-measure natin doon sa volume ng ating titrant na alam natin ang concentration. Okay, so anong apparatus ang ginagamit natin for volumetric analysis or titration? Very familiar, ito yung tinatawag nating mga burette. Okay, so volumetric solution, yun nga, kailangan alam natin yung concentration and the amount or the volume that we will deliver, kailangan alam din natin na accurate yung measurement ng volume. So, among all the glassware, ang pinaka-accurate na measurement, no, ay yung ating mga burette. You cannot use plain pipettes or even beakers, no, kasi yung beakers hindi naman talaga mga pang-measure yan or yung mga Erlenmeyer flask. Kailangan burette yung gagamitin natin for the delivery of the volumetric solution to our analyte solution. Okay, tingnan muna natin no, ang components ng ating volumetric analysis. So in summary, ayan, ano ba ang makikita natin sa isang setup ng isang titration assay? So syempre, nandyan si titrant. From our definition earlier, we have the volumetric solution. And again, that is also called your titrant. And you react this, so there is a chemical reaction involved. Kaya nga classical method, no, ang ating titration because there is a chemical reaction between your titrant and your analyte. So yung analyte, ito yung ina-analyze mo, okay? And usually, meron kang ina-add na indicator. Although for some, no, meron kasing mga titrimetric analysis na hindi kailangan ng indicator. So, ibig sabihin, ang meron lang tayo ay si titrant and also si analyte. Although hindi ito ganitong kasimple lang no, na laging titrant analyte. Si analyte, madalas may mga ina-add ka pa dyan to obtain the proper condition for the reaction. Pero hindi na natin siya sinama. Ang tinitingnan natin ay the major components of our titrimetric system. So, combining these three, no, doon natin makukuha yung reaction. And after the reaction takes place, we can see kung equivalent na ba yung amounts ng titrant and analyte. And we usually observe that doon sa tinatawag natin na endpoint. Ibig sabihin, tapos na yung analysis, i-measure ko na ngayon gaano karami yung na-consume ko na titrant, ika-calculate ko from there, doon ko makukuha gaano karami ba ang aking analyte. Okay? So tingnan natin itong components na ito, no, isa-isa. Okay, so again, we have, ito yung usual setup, no, ng ating titration. Usually, kapag volumetric solution, you use a burette. And yung analyte natin, madalas nilalagay natin siya sa Erlenmeyer flask kasi yun yung madalas madaling i-shake or i-swirl para nahahalok natin ng maayos yung ating solution. Okay, let's start with first, ayan, again, no, ano ba yung nakalagay sa burette? This is our titrant or yung ating volumetric solution. Okay, nandito, no, also known as your volumetric solution or pwede din siyang tawagin na standard solution kasi siya yung standard na pagbe-basean natin ng concentration ng ating analyte. So again, kanina pa natin dinedefine, no, VS, volumetric solution, it's the solution of known concentration. Pero hindi naman siya automatic na alam natin talaga yung concentration. Usually, we perform or it must undergo what we call standardization. And this standardization, ito yung, dito natin makukuha yung concentration. Dito natin malalaman, no, ano yung exact concentration ng ating VS or ng ating titrant. Alright, next, okay, ang next component natin, kung meron kang titrant, again, magre-react siya with your analyte. Okay, yung analyte natin, this is also known as your active constituent. Well, in pharmaceutical analysis kasi, ang madalas naman natin na tinatitrate or ina-analyze using titration ay yung active ingredient. So we can say that this is your active constituent. This is also your sample, but don't get confused, no? Kasi yung sample or sample matrix, it usually contains many components, including your analyte. Yung single compound na gusto mo talagang i-analyze, ito ay specifically known as your analyte. Okay? And another name, kanina titrant, no, yung ating volumetric solution, your analyte, this is also known as your titrand. Okay? Letter D, yung dulo, titrand. Okay, analyte, titrand, or yung active constituent, this is the chemical substance being analyzed. Okay? Ito yung inaalam natin na concentration. So, yung third component naman, okay, third component na nakahalo, siya usually, no, doon sa ating analyte. So, dito mo din siya ilalagay doon sa solution na nasa Erlenmeyer flask. So, we have the indicator. Okay? So, yung nasa burette, it's your volumetric solution. In the Erlenmeyer flask, or yung receiver natin, no, doon natin makita yung ating analyte, yung other chemicals to reach the certain required condition for reaction, and, of course, our indicator if needed doon sa ating reaction. So, what is an indicator, no? This is a chemical usually changes in color during the endpoint of the titration process. Okay? So, madalas kasi, no, sa titration, ang endpoint natin ay change in color. Okay? But, meron pa tayong different types ng reaction. Yung mga change in color, madalas makikita natin yan doon sa neutralization reaction or doon sa ating mga redox reaction. Okay? Meron din tayo yung mga complexation reactions. Now, for some, ay hindi talaga change in color but formation of precipitate. So, ito yung tinatawag, no, na volumetric precipitation. Okay, ang haba, precipitation. Okay, so yan yung 4 types, no, ng reaction that can be seen or yung mga pina-perform natin sa ating titration. So may separate discussion din tayo dyan, no, sa different types ng ating reaction. Again, your indicator that will indicate, okay, the endpoint or kung saan mag-i-stop na tayo doon sa ating analysis. However, some analysis do not actually require indicators, okay? Kasi pwedeng makita na natin yung endpoint even with the components of the solution or yung mismong volumetric solution, yung kulay niya. Okay, so this analysis no, na hindi nagre-require ng mga indicators, ito yung tinatawag na mga self-indicating reactions. Okay. Or pwedeng hindi natin kailangan ng indicator kasi iba yung way natin to observe the endpoint. For example, potentiometric titration. So instead of color change, yung change in pH, yung tinitingnan natin no, na indication ng ating endpoint. Now, kanina pa natin nababanggit no, itong endpoint. So what is endpoint? Okay. So usually no, again, nagbagong kulay ng ating solution sa loob ng Erlenmeyer Plus kasi usually no, karamihan ng ating mga titrimetric analysis ay nagbabago ang kulay upon reaching our endpoint. But before we discuss endpoint, no, ay meron tayong tinatawag na equivalence point. So ano naman tong equivalence point? So this is your theoretical. Okay, this is your theoretical endpoint or tinatawag din siyang stoichiometric endpoint. Okay, stoichiometric point. And this is the point denoting the completion of reaction. Okay, so ito naman pala yung point na nagsasabi na complete na yung reaction. Bakit hindi ito yung ginagamit natin na indication ng tapos na yung reaction? Instead, we use endpoint. Okay, so ito kasi yung equivalence point natin. Actually, ito yung pinaka-accurate na point because at this point, there is equivalent amounts of analyte and titrant have already reacted. Kumbaga dun sa chemical reaction, no, yung molar equivalence ng ating analyte and titrant na-reach na yon to be able to say that the reaction is already complete. Kasi yun nga, ang pinag-uusapan natin dito ay number of equivalence. However, this equivalent point or equivalence point is actually not observable. Okay, hindi natin may eksaktuhan talaga yung point kung kailan pantay yung equivalence ng titrant and ng analyte. Kasi hindi natin siya hindi mo makikita siya doon sa indicator. Usually, yung indicator, mag-work yan kapag may konting sobra ka na doon sa titrant. Pero, yun nga, no, hindi natin siya sosobrahan kasi lalayo tayo ng lalayo doon sa ating equivalence point. So, kumbaga, doon sa pinag-uusapan natin kanina, no, na accuracy, yung equivalence point, this is your target value. Now, nagmamatter na lang sa skills ni analyst at doon sa system mo ng analysis, how close your endpoint will be to your equivalence point. Okay? So again, equivalence point, ito yung theoretical, stoichiometric point, and ito yung equal talaga, no, yung equivalence ng ating analyte and titrant. However, hindi ito yung ginagamit natin for analysis or indication ng tapos na yung reaction dahil hindi ito observable. Instead, what we use is our endpoint. Okay, endpoint kanina, si equivalence point ay theoretical. Endpoint naman, siya ang ating experimental endpoint. Okay? And this is the experimental approximate. Okay? Approximate siya kasi yun nga, hindi siya yung exact na equivalence point. Ina-approximate lang natin na malapit dito yung equivalence point. So, itong endpoint na to, no, again, nakikita natin siya through a sudden change in some property of the reaction mixture. And this is usually with the help of an indicator. So, nabanggit na natin kanina, no, usually change in color or another physical property, precipitation, or yun nga, change in pH. And since color change, yung pinaka-common na change, then it's made apparent by use of, again, your indicators or electrometrically. And ito na yung na-observe natin. Okay? Sa color change, ito na yung na-observe na transition ng color. And electrometrically naman, ito yung na-observe usually na big jump in pH. Although may mga calculations pa yan, no, na involved, pero ang basis is still yung malaking change in pH. Okay? So again, endpoint ang ating tinitingnan when it comes to the indication that the reaction is already complete. So kailangan, ang technique, kailangan malapit ka doon sa ating equivalence point. Kasi kapag palayo ka ng palayo, na-overtitrate ka, the less accurate your analysis will be. Okay, so we have mentioned earlier, no, that for our volumetric solutions, it needs that we know the exact concentration. And for us to be able to do that, we need to do standardization. Okay, standardization, this is the method of determination of the concentration of a solution. Okay, yung concentration, this is usually expressed in either normality or molarity, but I highlighted yung ating normality kasi karamihan ng ating mga volumetric solution in normality yung ating expression. So normality, no, yung concentration. Kasi doon natin na-account yung number of equivalents. Okay, medyo reviewin lang natin ng slight, no, yung formulas nito. Again, yung normality, di ba, this is equal to the molarity times factor. Okay? And remember, ano ba yung molarity na formula? So, di ba, molarity is yung moles per liter and again, times factor. So, yung molarity, ito, again, ay moles per liter. So, dito, again, no, yung F, dito natin na-account yung ating factor And yung factor, ano ba yan usually? Paano natin nalalaman ano yung factor ng isang specific na volumetric solution? So madalas, kapag mga volumetric solution involved in neutralization reaction, the factor is equal to the number of H plus or hydroxide that can be liberated in the solution or yung magdi-dissociate in solution. So for example, hydrochloric acid, di ba? It will produce 1 H plus. So it will only have a factor of 1. Kapag sulfuric naman, di ba, nagpo-produce ng 2 hydrogen ions because it is a strong diprotic acid. So, ang factor natin ay 2. Okay. Ang factor din usually ay pwedeng, kapag mga redox reaction, no, number of electrons na nagtatransfer doon sa ating reaction. Ito ngayon yung medyo mas complicated, no? Kasi remember, kapag nagbabalance kayo ng reaction, iba-iba yung possible na transfer of electrons between the titrant and also the analyte. Okay, doon naman sa mga precipitation, no, usually, depende yan sa charge ng ating cation or anion. And then, kapag mga complexation, ayan. So, doon sa molarity, madalas, makikita natin ito, no, doon sa ating complexation na mga VS. Kasi madalas, metal and ligand complexation is always 1:1. Okay? Kaya, in molarity na lang sila express. And for some volumetric solutions, no, lalong-lalo na yung doon sa mga redox, pwede kasing isang volumetric solution yan, pero depende doon sa nature or condition ng reaction, pwedeng iba-iba yung factor. So, ang nangyayari ngayon ay, sige, in molarity na lang natin kasi pwedeng mag-iba yung factor depende sa reaction. So, meron pa rin kayong makikita, no, ng mga volumetric solution that is expressed in molarity, but again, commonly, normality ang ating concentration. Okay, components of standardization. So, tingnan natin, halos pareho lang naman siya nung ating setup or yung components ng titrimetric analysis. Kasi gagawin mo lang siya talaga, iba lang ang aim natin. Kapag titration assay kasi, ang inaalam natin yung concentration ng analyte na nasa Erlenmeyer flask. While for standardization, ang inaalam natin, concentration ng titrant na nasa burette. Okay? So, components of standardization, you have your solution, your volumetric solution. Ito yung itetest natin. And again, ito yung nasa burette. So, basically, parang siya yung titrant. Okay? And then you have your primary or secondary standard. Ito ngayon yung nandun sa ating Erlenmeyer flask. So, ito yung papalit kay analyte. Pero hindi natin aalamin yung concentration nito. Ang aalamin natin concentration ay yung solution based dito sa ating primary or secondary standard. And then again, karamihan ng ating reactions, no, ay kailangan natin ng indicator. So, you react this upon chemical reaction. Kapag equivalence na yung nag-react, no, you will again reach your endpoint. Okay, so let's see, no, the two types. So, ang kakaiba lang kasi dito, no, ay yung analyte, pinalitan natin ng ating standard. And as mentioned doon sa ating components, we can use either a primary standard or a secondary standard. Okay, so standardization, madalas, primary standard ang ginagamit. So, anong characteristics ng ating primary standard? This is usually in solid and this is high purity. And alam natin dapat yung concentration. Kaya madalas, itong mga primary standard, usually, dinatawag din silang mga RS. So, may nabibili talagang ganyan, no? RS means your reference standard. Okay, very high purity. Ito yung mga sobrang mahal, kaliliit, mga in milligrams lang yan, pero sobrang mahal ng kanilang cost. Kasi yun nga, high purity and alam, okay, known yung kanyang concentration. So, ini-store din ito properly para hindi mabago yung purity na yon. Kasi, yun nga, known yung concentration niya and ito yung magiging basis natin for the calculation or determination of the concentration of our volumetric solution. And usually, no, solid siya, pero kadalasan sa mga solid, may high water content. And kapag may water kasi, usually nagiging variable yung weight. Pero kailangan kasi natin ma-weigh ng maayos ito and ma-weigh accurately. Kasi kung hindi accurate, that will also change our computed concentration of the volumetric solution. So usually, no, dinadry siya unless otherwise specified. And again, carefully weigh. Kailangan accurate, no, ang pagkaka-measure. Now, how do you calculate for the normality? So usually, no, normality ang concentration ng ating titrimetric solution or volumetric solution. So this is, ito yung formula, no? O yan, nagsisimula ng sumulpot ang ating mahahabang formula. So huwag kayong kabahan agad, no, na ang haba naman ng formula na to. Pwede nating himayin yan. This actually just came from the formula, yung kaninang formula natin, no, na normality is equal to moles per liter or yung molarity times factor. Okay, kung hihimayin natin yan, no, we have here yung normality. So ano ba yung moles? Di ba grams per mole? Or yung weight ng sample divided by the molecular weight. So, eto lang yan. Okay, di ba? Yan yung moles. Now, yung liters saan galing? Well, pwedeng ml kasi yung gamitin mo, pero kailangan mong i-convert to liters. So, divided by 1,000 lang yan. And then, yung factor, nasaan siya? Nasa denominator ng denominator. Di ba parang times factor lang yan. So, that just came from, no, doon sa ating simplified na normality na factor or na equation. Okay, so that is your calculation for primary standard. Now, we can also use a secondary standard. Ano naman ang secondary standard? This is usually solution na siya. Ayan, liquid. Hindi siya yung solid na iwe-weigh mo and gagawin mong solution. Madalas ay liquid. And actually, this is already a volumetric solution. So, pwede kasi tayo mag-standardize gamit ang another volumetric solution. But that volumetric solution, it should also be standardized against a primary standard. Okay, kailangan nalaman din yung exact concentration nun bago mo siya gawin as a standard for another volumetric solution. Okay, so again, secondary standard is a standard solution or a solution is equal to the solution of known concentration. Formula nito, mas straightforward. We just use C1V1, C2V2, or in this case, dahil concentration nga natin ay expressed in normality, so N1V1 is equal to N2V2. Okay, so here in this slide, makikita natin ano ba yung mga common na primary standards. Karamihan kasi sa ating mga volumetric solution, primary standard talaga ang ginagamit. But there are still some volumetric solutions na secondary standard yung ginagamit to be able to standardize the solution. Ito din kasi yung mga solution na hindi kayang ma-prepare or walang appropriate na primary standard. Okay, so ano ba yung mga examples natin ng mga primary standards, So I'm not sure if these are usually asked in the board exam. Medyo ang varying kasi nito, Pero let's try na ma-identify nyo or ma-familiarize kayo, Ano ba yung usually primary standards for a specific type of reaction? So aside sa pag-memorize or familiarize ng mga chemicals na ito, I hope you'll also be familiar na saan ba siya usually ginagamit na type of titration. And maybe that way, you can easily recall ano ba yung mga primary standards na to. Okay, so first is arsenic trioxide. Okay, yung unang-una natin, actually, hindi na ito masyadong ginagamit. Pero yan, nilista pa rin dito, kasi some of our old references, ito pa din yung nakalagay. But if you check USP, hindi na ito ginagamit. Okay, arsenic trioxide, the chemical formula is AS2O3. Ayan, hopefully, you will be reviewing first your Gen Chem or inorganic chemistry kasi very important din that you know how to write chemical formulas. Okay, for arsenic trioxide, this is AS2O3. Okay, and anong volumetric solution usually yung pinaggagamitan before ng ating arsenic trioxide? So we have our ferric sulfate VS and we also have our iodine solution VS. So as I have mentioned, luma na to. Okay, hindi na ginagamit itong primary standard na to. Your ferric sulfate VS, this is already being standardized by another primary standard which is your sodium oxalate. And yung iodine naman, usually, makikita nyo sa USP, ang pag-standardize nito ay secondary volumetric solution or secondary standard. So, ini-standardize siya usually nung kapartner niya sa mga residual titration. That is your sodium thiosulfate. Okay? Na VS. Okay, lagyan natin ng VS kasi again, si iodine, isa siya dun sa mga volumetric solution na ang pag-standardize ay secondary standard. Okay, next we have benzoic acid. Okay, kapag nakakakita kayo ng mga acids or ng mga base doon sa pangalan or doon sa formula, more often, that is used to standardize volumetric solutions for neutralization reactions. Okay, balikan natin lang si arsenic trioxide. So, alam natin na si ferric sulfate or familiar tayo na si ferric sulfate or iodine ay ginagamit siya for redox. So, paano nyo ma-identify kung para sa redox yung mga VS na yun? Usually, ito yung mga compounds na merong elements na several yung oxidation state. For example, mga transition metals, yan yung mga nasa baba ng periodic table. Pero yung iba, kapag mga acids, bases, so usually, hindi yan involved sa ating mga redox reaction. For example, we have our benzoic acid. So, our formula for this is C6H5COOH. Or diba, ito yung benzene ring with your carboxylic acid group. Okay, so saan ginagamit itong ating benzoic acid? This is used to standardize sodium methoxide in toluene. Okay, in toluene. So, in-specify ko, kasi this is actually an example of non-aqueous titration. Okay, so hindi na natin mas i-discuss ito, pero basically, karamihan ng ating titration is done in an aqueous environment. Okay, but there are still, yan, gumagamit ng non-aqueous. Ibig sabihin, walang tubig. Ginagawa natin siya usually in organic solvents or acid solutions na walang tubig. Okay? Kasi usually ginagamit siya dun sa mga very weak talaga yung ionization kapag nasa tubig. Mas napapalakas natin yung ionization kapag ilalagay natin sila sa non-aqueous solutions. Okay, next, we have calcium carbonate. So, calcium carbonate naman, ayan, wag malito kasi carbonate, alam natin na base. Okay? Pero kapag nakita nyo na calcium siya, ito yung ginagamit natin sa complexation reactions. Okay, calcium kasi diba, this can be a metal para doon sa ating ligand. So, ibig sabihin, yan, formula pala muna, we have calcium carbonate. Ibig sabihin ng ating volumetric solution na ginagamit for complexation, this is your EDTA na volumetric solution. Okay? So, yung EDTA, this is your ligand that can complex your calcium, kaya siya yung ginagamit na primary standard. Okay, next, potassium biphthalate. Okay, doon sa name na bi, ito yung ibig sabihin, may nag-ionize na H+ doon sa ating anion. So, ibig sabihin, this can be used for volumetric solutions that are involved in neutralization reaction. So, anong formula natin no, for potassium bisalate? So, actually, for me, ang mas tinatandaan ko lang ng mga formula, dahil hindi rin naman nagsusulat talaga ng formula sa board exam. Pero yun, medyo mas mahirap kasi tandaan talaga ang formula sa mga organic compounds. Kasi usually drawing talaga yan. Pero kapag mga inorganic, ito dapat yung mas familiar talaga kayo. Now, your bisalate, this is an organic anion, so medyo mas complicated ng slide ang kanyang formula, but let's just still write nonetheless. Okay, so this is KHC8H4O4. Okay, so saan ginagamit ang ating potassium bisalate? So, again, neutralization reactions. But, ayan, pwedeng dun siya sa mga VS for aqueous solutions. So, for example, syempre, kung acid ito, no, pwedeng may maliberate na H+, or mag-dissociate na H+. So, ginagamit siya doon sa ating base ng mga VS. We have sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. Okay, next is kapag non-aqueous naman. So, ito yung ginagamit natin na perchloric acid. Okay, so makikita nyo, no, kapag aqueous, ginamit siya against a base. But in non-aqueous, against an acid. Ganun naman, di ba, ang ating weak. So, potassium bisalate is a weak acid. But depende yung kanyang magiging ionization doon sa environment. Kung more basic ba siya or more acidic than your potassium bisalate. So, pwede talaga siyang gamitin no, sa acid in the case of the non-aqueous titrations and also sa bases in the case of aqueous titrations. Alright, next ay potassium dichromate. Okay, we have here chromium. So, this is one of the transition metals, yung mga may iba-ibang kulay, no? So, ibig sabihin, ma-deduce natin na, for redox, ito. Okay, so chemical formula natin no, ng ating potassium dichromate is K2Cr2O7. So, K2Cr2O7, potassium dichromate, ano ang ginagamitan na volumetric solution for this specific primary standard. So, ito ngayon yung ginagamit natin for sodium thiosulfate. Okay, remember kanina, no, si iodine, ginagamitan natin ng sodium thiosulfate DS. Secondary standard siya, no, para malaman natin yung concentration ng iodine. Remember, your secondary standard, kapag yun yung ginamit mo, kailangan mas standardize mo muna siya against a primary standard. So, kung i-connect the dots nyo, so si sodium thiosulfate, na ginagamit natin pang standardize kay iodine, ini-standardize muna dapat siya using a primary standard, which is potassium dichromate. Okay, next, we have sodium carbonate. And idagdag ko din, no, sodium carbonate, kasi ito yung mas lumang method. Yung mga current ngayon, ang ginagamit na nila ay si tromethamine. Okay? So, dahil mga base ito, carbonate ulit, tapos tromethamine, makikita nyo may amine sa pangalan. These are basic substances, which means it can be used sa mga VS for neutralization. And gagamitin siya against an acid. So, yung volumetric solution na ginagamitan nito ay hydrochloric acid. Okay, formula muna, no? Chemical formula ng ating sodium carbonate, Na2CO3. And for your tromethamine naman, this is an organic molecule. This is C4H11. NO3. Okay. And then we have sodium chloride. Okay, ito naman, nag-iisa ito doon sa ating mga volumetric precipitation. Kasi, ano ba ang madalas natin gamitin for volumetric precipitation? It's your silver nitrate solution. So, ang laging partner, no, si silver nitrate, ang standard niya ay si sodium chloride. Okay, silver nitrate solution, kasi diba, this works in the principle that your silver halide salts precipitates out of the solution. So, yun na po-form, no? Kapag pinagsama mo si silver nitrate and sodium chloride, you will form the silver chloride na mababa ang solubility. So, yun ang nagpe-precipitate out of the solution. Okay, syempre, sino bang hindi nakakaalam? Ayan, papaluin ko kayo kapag hindi nyo alam ang formula ng sodium chloride. Okay, and then lastly, no, we have sodium oxalate. Sodium oxalate naman, the formula is sodium, so 2-sodium C2O4 ang ating oxalate. So, nabanggit na natin to kanina, no, dun sa ating ferric sulfate. So, yun yung isa sa mga ini-standardize using sodium oxalate. The other one, so isa pang redox na volumetric solution, we have potassium permanganate. Okay, so ito mga VS na to, no, isa-isahin natin later, lalong-lalo na yung mga pang-redox kasi under redox, iba-iba talaga yung types. Okay, depende dun sa iyong volumetric solution na gagamitin. Okay, so for now, no, before tayo pumunta dun sa mga actual na titration, kasi remember, we are still in the part of standardization, inaalam pa lang natin ang concentration ng ating volumetric solution. So let's have some sample problems first, no? So dalawa pa lang naman yung ating formulas na nadadaanan and yun muna yung gagamitin natin for this sample problems. Okay, basahin muna natin ang ating sample problem 1, no? So first question, calculate the normality. So yun nga, standardization, ang inaalam natin ay normality. Calculate the normality of sulfuric acid solution na ang volume ay 22.5 ml. So, yun yung gagamitin natin for standardization. And yung ginamit natin na pang-determine ng concentration is sodium hydroxide, which is a base. So, yung sodium hydroxide, given tayo ng normality, which is 1.1055, And yung ating volume na na-consume, no, to be able to neutralize or makuha yung endpoint ng neutralization, that is 20.7 ml. So in this problem, no, makikita natin na we have two solutions. Wala tayong solid. Ibig sabihin, ang ginamit dito ay secondary standard or it's a volumetric solution against another volumetric solution. Okay, so you can stop here, you can pause the video, no? So kayo muna, try nyo muna yung calculation and then after you have obtained an answer, so i-play nyo ulit and let's answer together. Okay, so liitan ko lang ang aking font, no? Kasi para may space tayo sa ating calculation. So, yung usual natin, no, depende sa inyo. Marami talagang ways of calculation, pero yung recommended ko syempre is identify nyo muna yung mga given. So, yung given natin, again, yung ating volume ng sulfuric acid, or pwede nating i-label ito as V1. So, basta i-prepare nyo yan na ang number 1 ay si sulfuric acid. This is 22.5 ml. And then, si volume naman ng sodium hydroxide, or i-label natin as V2, this is 20.70 ml. And dahil si solution number 2, si sodium hydroxide, and yun din ang given na normality, so siya, i-label muna natin, normality ni sodium hydroxide, so ito ngayon si N2 doon sa ating formula, and this is again 1.1055 normal solution. So basically, no, as we have mentioned, this is like a standardization using a secondary standard. So the formula that we will use is just the C1V1, C2V2, or N1V1, N2V2. Okay, so may input na natin ngayon, no, very straightforward itong question at binigay na din lahat ng kailangan natin for the analysis. So, N1, nandyan ba sa ating given? Yan yung wala. So, ito ngayon, yung ating what is asked. Okay, ito yung unknown. So, ang meron tayo, do we have V1? Yes. Okay, yan yung volume ng ating unknown concentration. Meron ba tayong N2? Yes, nandyan ang normality ni sodium hydroxide. And meron ba tayong V2? Yes, nandyan din given ang volume nung pinang-standardize natin. Okay, so pwede na nating i-rearrange, no, ang ating formula so that we can isolate yung unknown. Again, yung unknown natin ay si N1. Ilipat lang natin sa kabila, no, cross multiply N2 V2 over V1. So input lang natin yung ating mga given, no? So N2, sige, dito ako sa kabila dahil masikip. So N1 is equal to, ano yung N2? 1.1055 normal times the volume V2. So, huwag niyong pagbabalik na rin, no, kasi magkakamali kayo. Kaya kailangan label ng maayos ang inyong given. V2 is 20.70 ml over your volume of sulfuric acid, which is 22.5 ml. So, cancel out those given with similar units. Kaya ang matitira sa atin, the answer should also be in normality. So, if you calculate this, you should be able to get, yan, sana ito din ang nakuha niyong answer, no? The answer or the concentration of sulfuric acid in normality is 1.071 normal. Okay? Ayan. So, again, no, we have calculated this problem using this formula. N1V1 is equal to N2V2. Okay? Nakuha yon. Alright. So, next, no, another sample problem before we proceed with the types of titration. Okay, basahin muna natin itong problem, no? We have here 24.15 ml of an alkali sodium hydroxide. Yan, sorry, naulit ang alkali solution. And it was required, yung volume na yon, in the titration of a 4.9651 grams of sample ng dried reagent potassium by phthalate, given tayo ng milli-equivalent of 0.20423. So, ang tinatanong ngayon, ano ang normality ng solution? Okay, so from this problem, no, may makikita na tayong weight. And tiningnan natin kanina, di ba, yung different examples ng primary standard. And potassium biphthalate is one of them. Di ba, yun yung mga ginagamit natin for our alkali volumetric solution. So, ibig sabihin, the formula that we will use for this is yung ating formula for primary standards. Okay? So, sige, again, no, try nyo muna on your own before resuming the video so that you can see and compare if you have obtained the answer na similar doon sa magiging answer natin. Okay. So, again, to solve this, ay tingnan muna natin, no, ano yung mga given. So, we have here yung ating volume ng titrant. Okay, remember kasi, no, yung inaalam natin na concentration, usually siya yung nasa burette. So, yun yung titrant natin, which is yung ating sodium hydroxide solution. So, volume of titrant is 24.15 ml. And meron tayo yung weight ng ating primary standard. That is your potassium biphthalate, and according to the given of 4.9651 grams. And given tayo ng MEQ or milli-equivalents ni standard, which is 0.20423. Ang tinatanong sa atin ngayon ay si normality. Okay, sulat muna natin yung formula, no, para doon sa ating primary standard. Okay, the formula is, again, the weight of your standard over the volume of your titrant, na usually in ml, multiplied by, yung pahabain natin ng onte, multiplied by molecular weight over factor times 1,000. Okay, so ang kakaiba lang dito sa ating given, no, ay ang given, instead na molecular weight and factor, ang binigay sa atin ay yung milli-equivalence na. Actually, itong milli-equivalence ay itong part ng ating formula na to. So this is your molecular weight over factor times 1,000. So in this case, hindi mo na kailangan alamin pa yung factor, no? Although, kapag ganitong mga neutralization, si biphthalates and sodium hydroxide, kapag yun ang gamit, the factor is usually 1. Okay? So yung factor natin dyan ay 1. Tapos ang molecular weight ng ating biphthalate, if you search for it, it's around 204.23. Okay? So 204.23 over 1,000, dyan natin nakuha itong milli-equivalent. So ang mangyayari ngayon, ipapasok na lang natin siya doon sa ating denominator. Okay, so input natin kasi the rest ay meron na din tayong data. So we have the weight of the standard and the volume of the titrant in ml. Okay, don't be confused as well, no? Reminder lang. Kasi madalas, syempre, in ml yung ating volume measurement for our titrant. But posible, no, na baka mamaya in liters nila ibigay. So kapag in liters na yung i-input nyo, kailangan yung tanggalin itong 1,000 na to. Okay? Kapag ml, kailangan nasa formula natin yung ating 1,000. Okay, so let's input our given doon sa ating formula. What's the weight of the standard? Again, it's 4.9651 grams. And then, the volume of the titrant is 24.15 ml times yung MEQ. So, direct na natin i-input, no, doon sa ating portion ng formula na to. Okay? Yung molecular weight over factor times 1,000. So, we have 0.20423. So, kung tatanungin nyo, yung unit, no, medyo complicated kasi yun nga, hindi natin madalas ginagamit yung milli-equivalence or kinakalculate before. Usually, i-input natin as molecular weight and factor. So, syempre, alam naman natin na molecular weight is gram per mole, factor, walang unit yan. So, ibig sabihin, no, dahil nasa denominator, well, pwede natin ilagay dito na grams per mole. Or, yun nga, it's, dahil accounted yung factor, parang equivalence yung ating units dito. Pero, huwag nyo na isipin, para hindi kayo malito, no, that's only pinakita ko lang para ma-cancel out natin yung mga kailangan ma-cancel. So, di ba, maka-cancel out yung grams, and yun nga, dahil equivalence tayo dito, or milli pala, milli equivalence kasi naka-divide by 1,000, tapos naka-over ml, so yan yung matitira. Parang ang ating normality kasi is milli equivalence per ml, okay? Or equivalence per liter, okay? So, eto na yan, okay? Yan yung ating formula na, and nandiyan na yung ating mga given. So, what is the answer? So, you should be able to get, no, 1.0067 normal na solution. That's the concentration of your sodium hydroxide. Alright? So, ito yung mga sample problems natin, no, for you to be able to calculate the standardization. Again, standardization, instead of determining the amount or concentration of analyte, we are determining the concentration of our volumetric solution. That is why the answer na kinukuha natin, no, sa ating standardization problems ay in normality. Okay, kung hindi nyo man nakuha, no, yung answers to this problem, you can rewind. So, ulitin nyo, no, para makita nyo saan ba naging different yung inyong calculation or inyong solution, kaya nag-iba ang inyong answer.